measure from the intersection of the roadway and the driveway 10 feet along the roadway, and then 10 feet from the roadway down the driveway, and connect those 2 points and create that triangle. And if the fence is outside that triangle, the bylaw is not applicable, is the way I read the bylaw.
Yeah.
So it was an oversight by me at the beginning, and it was brought to my attention by the neighbor's attorney. Therefore, the letter rescinding my original letter, for reasons just stated, that fence is clearly, I don't have exact numbers, but it's well outside of 10 feet from either driveway.
Understood.
So that's the gist of it in so many words, and hence we're here. So I had discussed with the Federicis that they obviously had the right to appeal my decision and come to you guys in front of you and let you guys take this up how you wanted to.
Yep, thank you. Other members ask questions if you'd like, but it sounds like that bylaw that you cited in the original letter tells you to draw a triangle on either side of the driveway, right?
Correct.
And essentially, I'm sorry, I'm holding this up to
Yep.
but essentially, you got to do that, right? Where the
Yep.
driveway is shown going into the property, and you draw it. It's 10 feet, from here to there, and then 10 feet from the street to back of the driveway, and then you connect them with a line to make a triangle, correct?
Correct.
And the fence is far outside of this triangle as well, in addition to being more than 10 feet from the road, right?
Correct.
So, in my view, I don't know that this bylaw actually applies because it's also a parking lot bylaw dealing with commercial developments. The applicant feels very strongly that they have a dangerous condition there when they exit from their property at 42 because of what was done on 46 Mansfield Ave. But I'm not sure this bylaw applies to that situation in any event, and it seems like the measurements taken by the building commissioner place the fence outside of those triangular zones in any event. That's my assessment. Members, do you have questions for either the Federicis or the building commissioner? Go ahead.
One, if that's okay. Brian had forwarded some information about another regulation. It was like 184.3 or something like that. I don't know. I don't believe it was from the zoning bylaw, but it was another, I don't know, statute. Is that the right word, Brian? That seemed to possibly apply. I'm not sure if this board has authority to enforce it wherever it came from, but I'd like to learn more about it, where it came from, and does it apply?
Are you talking about the Article 2 under use obstructions? Removal of obstructions, which is 135-8 under the town of Norton?
That sounds right. Yes, I think that was forwarded to us.
It reads that no fence shall be erected with a setback of less than 10 feet from a vehicular right-of-way, or shall be erected to obscure vehicular sight lines.
That's the piece, and I saw some correspondence there. The or is interesting. I don't. First question is, does this board have authority to enforce that, wherever that came from? And second question is, who determines whether it's an obstruction of a sight line?
I don't know that, I don't think that the board has the authority to enforce that. It's not a zoning bylaw, and we are the zoning board of appeals. I don't know that that bylaw, if it is a bylaw, applies to the situation, but I don't believe that it's something that either the building commissioner or we are commanded to apply. We have the zoning bylaws that apply to the decisions we make. I'm not sure if the assumption is that that applies to this situation. I think the applicant probably has other redress other than the zoning board. That's my view of it. Mrs. Federici? Go ahead.
Yes, when you use the word redress, what does that mean?
Who to take that to? In other words, if it can only be decided by the zoning board if it's a zoning decision made by the building commissioner or a variance or a finding under 1.5. We have limited jurisdiction. I don't know how one applies that bylaw. I don't believe it is the zoning board.
That may be a question, or even that, with it being a general bylaw, my assumption would be planning board or select board, which would be general. Or I'm the zoning enforcement officer, so I enforce the zoning bylaw. But I can do some research. I can send a message to town council about that. I haven't had a chance to be quite frankly honest since last week, but I can send an email to town council and ask who would be the authority of enforcing something like that to take that opinion. But I don't know that answer right now, to be quite honest.
Well, that's very generous. We can decide to do that if the board feels that appropriate. I just know what's within our purview as the zoning board, and I don't, that section is not within our purview. But members, we're free to do what we want to do. The applicant obviously feels very forcefully about the issue. We can decide to ask that of town council, how would this be enforced if it even would restrict. Go ahead, Mr. Tenori.
I feel if we didn't do anything and something happened there, I wouldn't feel right about it. I think we should definitely explore how that section, or who can apply that section. I think the town should, at the very least.
I think I share that sentiment, Tom. This being a safety issue, I don't think we should just walk away from it just because it's not technically a zoning bylaw. I feel the same as Jim. If there's some way we can get the ball rolling with whoever can make a decision, whatever we can do to help, the applicant feels very strongly, and as Jim said, this is a safety issue that should be, batted around and swept under the rug.
Dave Federici here. I'd like to say a couple things.
Go right ahead, sir.
Yes, does anybody know that if 46 Mansfield Avenue, if the attorney came out themselves and measured the triangle themselves?
No.
Anything?
We don't know that, but I can take note. I'm sorry. We don't know if the attorney came out, but I take note that, you know, it's obvious, the fence is obviously 10 feet further from the driveway entrance.
Right, okay.
One can visually, see that. So those triangles on either side of the driveway simply don't touch the fence. So
I'm not
that
really
statute,
too concerned. Excuse me, but I'm not really too concerned about the triangles. Right? Maybe, you know, they have the fence in there within the limits, maybe, you know, another 6 inches. But I can tell you one thing, just like a lot of things, it's only a matter of time and something is going to happen. Okay? And my driveway is not part of the public sidewalk. Just like a crosswalk, you cannot stop over a crosswalk. You cannot stop over a sidewalk because it in itself is a public way. For me to go out and get a visual on the oncoming traffic on both sides, I have to stick the nose of the car over the entire width of the sidewalk, which is illegal. And if I don't do that, I find myself 8 feet back from the nose of the car to the driver's side doorknob. I'm eight feet back from the end of my driveway. And today, you know, we got our snow. Sidewalk did not get plowed. I had to shovel the sidewalk, which is not my driveway. I had to shovel the sidewalk to get out to the street. And the sidewalk itself was not plowed. And I did my usual thing of shoveling out the fire plug. So I just want to make my concerns that I have to stick my nose way out there in order to see the oncoming traffic. And this little word, OR, it's the sight line. Or shall be erected to obscure vehicular sight lines. We have no sight lines. Unless I'm over that sidewalk, which is illegal to be resting on. So you might want to check that out.
understood, and thank you. And as far
Yeah,
as
well-
shoveling the sidewalk and shoveling out the fire plug, nobody on this panel is doubting that you're a good resident, good citizen and neighbor for doing that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
Thank you for that as well. It's just
Right.
that, as we explained a few weeks ago, we're limited by what the law allows us to do and allows us to look at. If this is enforcement by some other body or entity, such as the police department, for example, you know, then that's what it is. We only take actions according to what we're jurisdictionally commanded to take action about. But it sounds like the board members, and we're not doubting the building commissioner's measurement here. The question is whether that other bylaw has applicability to our decision making, and if not, who would be able to look at that or enforce that. That's all we're talking about right now. If members feel they want to find out, we can pose the question to town manager and to town council and see what happens. It would mean, you know, a motion to continue this to another meeting. Our next meeting, I think, is March. Did we just say 11th?
Yes.
Is that's Monday that week, right?
Yep.
A few weeks off. We can do that if we choose to. If there's a motion to you know, continue, that's not inappropriate at this time. My view is that the building commissioner did his job as he saw fit, and we're entitled to not just review that, but to make our own decision. Under the bylaws as I understand them, I'm not sure we can do anything. But if this board feels like it wants to explore that other bylaw, then I'm not going to stand in the way of that, certainly.
Tom, what do you think is the best approach? I don't know that continuing is what I was envisioning. I was envisioning we have some formal communication with town manager asking them to make a decision. Because it's clear that it doesn't seem to be a zoning issue.
Well, our only recourse would be to take a vote and to say, yes or no. I can tell you that I don't see it within zoning, so I would have to vote no to the applicant, no relief to this applicant, which is an appeal of the building commissioner's decision. But if the board wants to explore that other section, then
I would say we should at least continue it until we figure out who can apply that other section, because I think the way I read that other section, I think it would apply, or at least I would read it as it would apply. But again, I may not have any authority to read that section and vote on it, but I don't know.
right, I understand. That's exactly what I'm saying. We don't know.
Yeah, and I think if we take a vote and we, and I'm not saying, I think Nick did exactly what he was supposed to do. However, I do agree with, it's a safety issue, and I think we need to either, I think a couple emails need to go out to a couple different places, like maybe town manager, maybe Amy, town board, the select board, and say, hey, this is the issue. This is what we find it may not be a zoning issue. There is a possible statute, but we don't know who would apply it. And until we get further guidance, we should continue it, and then, because I agree. If something happens there, I'd feel terrible that we didn't do it.
So it sounds like the feeling of the board is that you don't want to foreclose this at this time. So I can volunteer to do those emails, to town manager and town council and the select board to ask about that bylaw, the second bylaw, and ask about its applicability and its enforcement. I mean, we're not saying that the bylaw. We're asking if the bylaw is implicated. We're not making a decision under that bylaw. Who decides whether there's an obstruction or not? We're not viewing that at all, really. We haven't been out there. It's a question of
Nick,
whether
do you know? I mean, it seems like something you would enforce of anybody in town. It seems like it'd be you.
Zoning enforcement officer. I'm the zoning enforcement officer is my title. Just for record too, to note in the record, every time there's a fence obstruction or an issue with a fence, the building code, I don't have jurisdiction over fences less than 7 feet tall under the building code. No requirement for permits. There's nothing in a bylaw that requires a fence to be a certain setback from a property line outside of that parking bylaw that I noted in my letter. So anytime there's a fence issue, I always contact Mike Units, town manager, and have him reach out. We have what's called a fence viewer. And reach out to the fence viewer, who I've always been under the impression has the authority in situations like this. I don't know. Again, I'm in my truck, but it's mass general law. I don't know if it's 39 or 41. It's in that realm. I can send something out next week. But there's a mass general law on situations like this that the authority through MGL falls to the fence viewer to a certain extent. Now, I don't know how far that goes, but they're usually ones that would be contacted in a dispute such as this one. And he did go out. I believe Nancy and her husband did speak with him, but from conversation with them, he didn't give them any formal opinion or kind of final correspondence as to what his thoughts and opinions of the situation were, which I believe may be helpful in a situation like this. If the fence viewer has a formal opinion, it may be helpful to have that in writing. But I don't have contact with that fence viewer. That is solely through the town manager's office, and I have no jurisdiction over that position.
Dick, is that a town, person or?
Yep. Town.
Well, it sounds interesting. Sounds like we're in the colonial days. Fence viewer,
Yeah.
like the town crier who goes out at 2 a.m. and says, 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I mentioned at the
MGL.
I mentioned at the last meeting too, given that this is an immediate safety concern, like, I don't know, can a mirror be put up, or, like, what are some options here? I know it's a state road. I mean, I just don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but,
I think
trying to
that's
be creative here.
That may be a discussion with the highway superintendent. I don't have jurisdiction to put a mirror on telephone or things such as that, right? That's not, and with it being a state road, it gets tricky too.
Okay. So my suggestion is
I say a
that,
little something,
yes, go right ahead,
food
sir.
food for thought. When my wife gets killed coming out of the driveway, who am I gonna find myself pointing my finger at? Think about that one.
Yeah, but that's not, I think, sir, you gotta be reasonable with us. We can
I
only
am
do what we're
reasonable.
legally entitled to do. We're not gonna go beyond those limits. So an example like that is horrible, and none of us hopes that
Very
happens.
reasonable, very horrible. Right, I agree.
But it's not something that any townsperson should put before us as a matter of guilt. We're trying to apply the bylaws as we deem appropriate, and not anymore, because your neighbor is going to have something to say about it. You don't want us just to say, wave a magic wand and say the neighbor has to eliminate his fence, because you know why? He'll take everybody, including you, to court. We're trying to do what's best. So please don't impose on us the moral obligation to protect against all accidents. We're doing, and I think you should realize that we're stepping out on a limb to do whatever we can here.
I'm just saying, don't overlook the possibility. That's all I'm saying.
None of us here is overlooking that possibility. Is there a motion to ask the chair, meaning me, to email town council, town manager, to ask about the applicability of that bylaw, and to continue this to the March 11 meeting?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Okay, I mean, let's discuss the motion. Is there any more to say tonight?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
This is just a curiosity question. We're just looking to have it tapered. So ideally, we're not looking for removal. And, they say good fences make good neighbors. Well, we have a bad fence and we have bad neighbors. So my question is, I don't know if it's even feasible for someone like Nick to go to the couple, which I forget their last name, Georgiana's, and I don't know, just say, look, this is a concern. We don't get along, unfortunately, and they're the only neighbors that none of us in the area get along with. So that's all we're asking to do. And I had sent pictures to you of the fence they put up in the back of our property, which is in the middle of the woods. And the last 3 sections are all tapered. So, what's kind of going on here.
I'm
So I don't know if there's...
I'm actually not sure what's going on, because there's a letter in the file from their attorney that says that you say they're bad neighbors. Well, they've accused you in writing of being bad neighbors. We're not here to judge bad or good neighbors. We're just here to apply the rules as we find them. Appreciate your comments, your concerns. I'm gonna ask for a vote on the motion that's on the table. Mr. Tenori, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Spangler
Yes.
and Mr. Noel votes yes as well. This is continued till March 11th, say 7:05. The second item on the agenda. Maybe we'll take it up first. We'll explore in the meantime what, if anything, we can do for the Federikis. All right? Is there any other business to come before us, Mr. Carmichael?
No, I was just gonna suggest, since we have Island Brook that night, would we wanna have this first?
Sure. Put this at 7, Island Brook at 7:05. Mr. Iafrede, thank you for joining us from your location. The Federikis, thank you very much for joining us and for your consideration and understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Can we discuss future meetings, dates? I
Sure.
think we don't have anything beyond March 11th, correct?
What about
Well, our last meeting date is March 11th, and then I had in pencil the third Wednesday in March, but I'm not sure if we're able to do that.
Okay.
Since you guys said that you weren't able to do it with Island Brook. So I don't know if that's changed or.
The third is not good. Third Wednesday, the 20th is not good for me. It would have to be the 27th for another March meeting or into April.
I would advocate for going to April. I'd love to try to break from the schedule. It seems like we're meeting every couple of weeks here. It'd be great if we could get back to the monthly cadence.
Agreed. April 3 is the first Wednesday. Is that good?
Not for me, sorry.
I can do the 10th and the 17th.
The 17th works for me, not the 10th.
17th.
Yep.
Okay. So we've got March 11, April 17.
Yep.
Are we good for that for now?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Any other-
Tom, can you just put me on your correspondence about that item?
Of course I will. Yes, I will.
All right.
And Brian Carmichael as well. I'll put everybody on. I'll put all of you on. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, Nick. And thank you for joining us double remotely, I guess, right?
Absolutely. That's what I'm here for.
You're the only one in a vehicle, so thank you.
I am. All right,
Are
guys.
there any other joint meetings scheduled besides the 11th?
Joint meeting with the planning board?
Yeah.
The 11th is
That's-
a joint meeting?
No, that's the joint meeting was just scheduled, I think, for the 13th,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Oh, I thought Brian said the 11th a little bit ago.
We have a meeting, the zoning board has a meeting, it's meeting on the 11th.
Well, Brian, so the joint meeting between the planning and zoning board was at 5 today. And then we
I
had
get
it at
that.
7.
Yeah. So
So-
is there another one scheduled? I guess my question, and when is it?
March 13th at 5. So that's a Wednesday, which is the same
Okay.
week as our next meeting.
Okay,
Tom, are we what's our role in these meetings? Is this just informational? Are we going to be expected to vote on the changes? I'm trying to gauge what my involvement needs to be because frankly, I really can't make a 5 o'clock meeting Monday through Wednesday. I work in Boston.
yep. Well, I could try to communicate that to the group. Our role is that we're going to try to hopefully come up with a set of bylaw revisions and and vote them to town meeting, vote them, approve them, hopefully, or, as we change them, so that we are recommending them for town meeting consideration in the fall. I think that's the mechanism. That's how
Well,
I understand it.
Working sessions, and we're not voting or anything like that.
Well, they're working sessions, yeah. Eventually, in the next couple, we'll be taking votes. I mean, we didn't have a quorum tonight, so we were observing basically and commenting. But we're going to need to have a quorum in order to take any sort of vote. So if 5 p.m. is not good for you, I will certainly communicate that to the group. Carmichael, try to remind me tomorrow to do that as well, tomorrow or the next day. Poke me if I don't do these emails, guys.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it, Tom. I'd love to be involved, but I just can't
Yeah.
change my work schedule there.
No, I understood here, and it's kind of a group decision as to when we meet. So you can get involved in that too, and we'll see if others are amenable to changing.
Excellent, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
They're big,
Anything else tonight?
they're big decisions, right? I mean, you're revamping some pretty significant bylaws in town, and so it's only, like Tom said, it's only prudent for everybody to kind of get on the same page and hopefully get you to these meetings.
Yeah, and in fact, Nick, tonight a couple times said, "Gee, Nick should be part of this and viewing this." Now I realize you were tied up. I'm not trying to put any heavy on you, but it affects your role and how you go about things. So yeah, absolutely. The more involvement, the better.
Include your title, Nick.
Huh?
Include your title.
Yeah. I get the email, so I saw the revisions that you guys are discussing tonight, and so on and so forth, and have been somewhat up to speed, but same thing. I'll make it a point. It's just sometimes life, as you guys know, gets in the way.
It sure does.
But yeah, I'll be jumping back on board because obviously it affects me immensely on a day-to-day basis. And that's my thing for Brian, right? I mean, you want to be involved because there's discussions on certain bylaws that you guys deal with right now on a fairly regular basis that may not be the case moving forward. So,
and you.
Exactly.
I mean,
absolutely.
We were talking tonight about non-conforming changes, and your name came up. Now, Jim Tenori actually made a motion tonight. We were unable to vote it because we didn't have a quorum on the zoning board. He moved to give your title as emperor.
Can I get a special hat too?
No, that wasn't part of the motion, but
Just
he said we should call Nick emperor, and I said, well, I'm fine with that, but he's going to want a special hat, and there you are.
Yeah.
We tabled it for the next one.
All right, I'll make sure I'm there at the next one with tea and crumpets, and we can discuss.
All right. And we are going to move to make your positions permanent on the zoning board unless you attend. So, all right. Thanks, Brian. Thanks very much, Brian and Jim and Nick and everybody else. Thanks. And is there a motion to adjourn at 7:38?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Spangler? And I think I have to make it unanimous. I'm going to press the leave button immediately after I say yes.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, guys.